Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Anna and I just like to talk about some shows that I watch. I've been on a bit of a reality show kick because the strikes, the WGA strike already has lifted. The SAG-AFTRA has not. Fingers crossed. I hear that they're close to an end to the strike. But for right now, I'm still not doing anything scripted. I've recorded some things on TikTok, uh, but I'll work on actual scripted shows soon, hopefully, for the YouTube channel, especially because I am dying to make some content on one specific thing. Anyway, so we are doing Love is Blind season 5. Well, the first of, I think, 3 or 4 different videos. I think they're going to, actually, maybe even 5, because I don't know if they're going to do the reunion as part of the set. Right now, they have 10 listed on Netflix and IMDb, split across 3 different dates, 3 different Fridays, 3 different weeks. And I don't know if the reunion will be episode 11 that they'll have to do on week number 4. But for right now, we are gonna cover episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on my notes, I said 1, 2, 3, and 3. I am not a professional YouTuber. This is just a thing I do because I like to talk. So yeah, Love is Blind season 5. Before anything else, your girl isn't feeling very much like herself these days. Energy is low, things are happening, things are not happening. So I thought, to make sure that I am okay, that sounds wrong. So I thought, to make sure that throughout the recording I am engaging or whatever, I'm going to be drinking. Yeah. It's just a vodka cruiser, whatever. It's not, shots of really hard stuff or anything. But I don't drink very much, but I feel like today, for the sake of the recording, maybe I should. I have my teeny tiny ice bucket that's actually just a cup, like a tumbler, a heat, whatever, a thermal cup. Come on, ice. Whew. And I've got a couple of bottles of the lemonade vodka cruiser. Maybe it's just juice. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Hopefully, actually, I don't even really need it. But just in case. All right. So, like I said, Love is Blind season 5. I'm going to scooch a little bit to this side because I like the little Eiffel Tower lamp that I have over there. All right. Love is Blind season 5. For those of us who have lives and aren't as focused on TV and Netflix, unlike myself, I'm not sure if you know what the premise of Love is Blind is. So, Love is Blind is a reality show focused on finding love and marriage. They put 15 men on one side, 15 women on the other side. There's a set of pods in the middle, individual pods. They date each other and they are not allowed to see each other. The experiment, as they keep calling it, is whether or not love is blind, meaning can you fall in love with somebody who you've never seen? By the way, I believe the answer is yes. We won't talk about that today. And I'm using a rose gold goblet. Love is Blind is known for their gold goblets, and that was inspiration in my getting one of these. But as you can tell, pink is my favorite color. So, rose gold. Anyway. So they date each other. At the end of, I believe, a 2-week period or whatever, maybe 10 days, they choose who they will get engaged to. Someone asks, "Will you marry me?" The other person says yes or no. But if they do get engaged, they see each other for the first time at this whole reveal situation. And then they get whisked away to a paradise for almost a honeymoon, but they hadn't gotten married yet. And then they get thrown back into real life, except they're living together at that point. They get provided apartments or whatever by the production team, and they live life for 3 weeks or so, and then they end up at the altar, and then it is a question of whether or not love is blind. it is a legal binding marriage at the end of the show. So really, they get, if my math is right, and it might not be, 2 months ish, maybe less, to figure out if they actually want to be married to somebody who they didn't know at the beginning of the experience. Yeah. Oh. It really just tastes like lemonade with like a bit of an aftertaste. It's fine. Okay. So we're gonna talk about the cast. Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey, well, actually, Nick doesn't say obviously. He says, I am, of course, Nick Lachey, or something like that. It's not obviously anymore, it's of course. There's a few people that I took note of. Chris, who is either 27 or 28, he's 27 on the show, he's 28 now, I think. Stacy is 33, is an operations manager. Uche is 33 and a lawyer. Carter is 29. He's a fisherman. I put a little star next to Carter because I thought he was hot. Lydia is 30. She's a geologist. Milton is 24 and an engineer. Izzy is 29 and he is in insurance. I didn't finish my note. It just says insurance. I'm sure he's not an insurance. He does something in the world of insurance. Okay, Johnny or Joni. Some people on the show call her Johnny, I believe, and then some people also call her Joni. I'm gonna call her Johnny. She's 30 and she's a lawyer. You've got Taylor, she's 25 and she's a teacher. Aaliyah, 28 and is an ICU nurse. JP is 30, he's a firefighter. I put a little fire emoji next to him because he's a firefighter, but also because he's hot. Robert, 28, teacher. Miriam, 31, scientist. Renee, 31, vet. Connor, 30, I think geologist also. I didn't rewind to look. I'm the worst. All right, that's not everybody, I'm sure. I'm sure I missed some. If in the later episodes somebody who we didn't mention becomes important, we'll go over it again. But for right now, I talked about more people than those who have drama in this first set of episodes. I will say that there have only been 4 episodes this season that are out, but this already has been the most dramatic out of the 5 seasons, and I've seen all 5 seasons. So, yeah. So they start out, so the women are put in the women's quarters, the men are put in the men's living quarters. Mommy and Daddy Lachey come in, they say hi, they say hello, talk about the premise, which we've already gone over. The hosts ask the women, are there any questions they want to ask the men right off the bat? And somebody says, have you ever been to therapy? Which I think is a valid question. And a lot of people who are maybe more traditional, especially maybe in the country that I live in, because a lot of us are still very traditional, have you ever been to therapy? If the answer is yes, it's like, ugh. But no, actually, if you've been to therapy, I think that that's a good thing. And I'm assuming some of the women would think that also because that means they're working on themselves, yeah? They did ask about weird fetishes. Toes were discussed. And then they start dating. They walk into pods and they're kind of paired up. And there are weird questions there too, like FMK. Y'all know what FMK is? French toast, waffle, or pancakes. Now, I know no one asked me, and I thought this is a ridiculous question also, but I will answer. I will F French toast. I will marry waffles and kill pancakes. I mean, not, yeah. I might delete that. Let's see. So Lydia and Milton make a connection. So you remember, Lydia is a geologist. And so you're like, hey, what's your name? How old are you? What do you do? She says she's a geologist. And he says, oh, I'm so into metamorphic rock or sedimentary rock, some kind of rock, a specific kind of rock. And she's all, oh, are you also a geologist? He's not. He's an engineer, but his work kind of, I guess, overlaps with geology. And they kind of hit it off a little bit. A little bit, not a lot bit. Lydia is 30 and Milton is 24. He says he is young, but thinks that he's doing pretty well for himself. He seems confident. And right away, he says that Lydia is his number one. Lydia then meets Izzy. Izzy, by the way, also hot. Um, they meet, they both speak Spanish, and they talk right away about siblings. He says he is open to therapy. She's looking for something stable, blah, 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 getting to know each other. They seem to be on the same page about kids. And she asks when he is going to propose to her. I think his answer is like, well, I'm working on it or something like that. But she, Lydia, who is Milton's number one, is very taken by Izzy. And then Izzy meets Stacy. So they talk about, that he's a drummer. That's like a skill that he has. They talk about darts. They're very cute actually. They're playful and happy and cheerful and kind of like giddy, But they didn't talk about anything too deep. But they seem to get along. And Izzy's like the new Barnett. Izzy is also talking to Johnny. Johnny is the lawyer, if y'all remember. Um, she says that her last relationship was 6 months ago and she wasn't in love. She said she had dated people with addiction issues, so that was something that that she had already like right away asked him if that is something that he ever struggled with, and he didn't. She was married before, and he says that he was previously engaged. Chris and Johnny. So Johnny meets Chris. I don't know why I did not put a heart emoji next to Chris's name on my list because I really like him. Anyway, Chris fosters pets on the weekend. She is also a fur mom, so they kind of connect on that. He seems very nice. And I actually said on here, and he's also cute. I think so. Chris, you are cute. So they finish like their day one of dates, right? Milton is a 24-year-old engineer talking to Lydia and also talking about Lydia at the men's quarters. He's very excited about her. Stacy says that she is dying to know what Carter looks like. Carter is who I thought right away is hot. But says that she has a good connection with Izzy. See, love can be blind because all these people are hot. I'm just saying. So, to summarize, 3 people connected with Izzy. That's Lydia, Stacy, and Johnny. Milton is very into Lydia. Lydia is more into Izzy. Chris is also connecting with Johnny. That's the mess right now. On day 2, I thought it was kind of funny because, on day 2, I thought it was kind of funny because they did like a montage of everybody making breakfast, and they like did a tight shot of the bacon. There was a close-up shot of some of the eggs that fell on the ground and people buttering toast or whatever. And I definitely know that is a response to the recent criticism about, or accusations and allegations that the cast members weren't fed. And it just really looks like they are overcompensating. So, yeah, they probably weren't fed very well in the first few seasons. Let's see. Taylor and JP in the beginning, so for almost every season, there's a golden couple. I'd hazard to say that for every season there is a golden couple. It's just in season 2 both couples filed for divorce, right? Season 1, it was clearly Lauren and Cameron who were the golden couple, and then you've got I'm gonna say Danielle and Nick was actually the golden couple, but then they have since divorced. Season 3, I don't even remember which one season 3 is. Oh, is it? Oh yeah. So season 3 is my goodness, what is her name? Alexa and Brennan. Yeah, I think they're the golden couple. In season four, Brett and Tiffany, hands down. I think this season it's supposed to be Taylor and JP. They do get engaged quite quickly, but I'd like to see the rest of the episodes because you never know. You never know. Apparently, if I don't know if I heard this right, but she teaches in the same school that he went to as a kid, so that's kind of cute. Um, he After their date, he walks into the hallway, talks to one of the guys, and says that he would hands down propose to her right away. So he's smitten. Let's see. We haven't really talked about Uche and Aaliyah. I mentioned them on the list, but they are kind of meeting other people. They finally meet each other. Uche is a lawyer. Aaliyah is a nurse. Actually, how old is Aaliyah? I don't remember. Aaliyah is 28. Uche is 33. Okay, so they just talk. It's a good connection. You can see it right away uh, that they're feeling each other. Um, and then there's just a cute date montage. Izzy is talking to Stacy, talking about how similar they are. They're extremely flirty. I think when I watched this the first time, I was texting with somebody, and I was like, "Huh, I really need to work on my flirting. I really need to work on flirting because these people know how to do it. Would not. I wouldn't even know where to start at this point. Anyway, he says he can see himself with her, but he is also thinking about Johnny. Remember, Izzy had three girls he was connecting with: Stacy, Johnny, and Lydia. He doesn't mention Lydia. Um, anyway, he says Johnny is sweet and she's tender. Johnny says to Izzy that he is her strongest connection, and he says he is right there with her. Yeah. And I think at that point it might have been true because, he and Stacy weren't really talking about anything much. They were playing games and laughing and flirty, but like the conversation, it seemed, sorry, the conversation it seemed was better with Johnny. Chris and Johnny are connecting over a game. There's Let's Get Deep, which is a bunch of questions, some pretty serious questions. He does open up and become vulnerable with her, and they like each other. She tells him that he likes her, and he tells her no, she tells him that she likes him, and he cares about her. So that's also cute. So Lydia and Izzy, I should have talked about Lydia a little bit more because she is a pretty major player this season. Lydia is she's got a very big personality and she doesn't rein herself in. All good things. I know I'm not quite like that anymore, but I do remember a time when I was, and that was a fun time in my life. I've just changed. She she is the type to wear her feelings on her sleeve, if that's the expression. She is communicative. She seems to be honest. Um, and just gives all the things. She gives all the things, right? Let's see. She says she has so basically she Lydia is very into Izzy. She says that he has been consistent and there is an easiness with him. She's very excited. Um, on this date at this point, now remember, Izzy is connecting with Johnny, connecting with Stacy, and Lydia is into him, right? So on this specific date, she's all excited. She comes in and says, "Hola, mi amor." Um, and like he's already cringing. Obviously, these things are edited, right? But like the way that it was edited is she says "Hola, mi amor," and he's already like, and he's cringing obviously because he knows he's about to break up with her. So he starts in with a speech. He says she's amazing. Um, but he does say that he has developed a stronger connection with other people in the pods, right? And like she's already like emotional about it. She's already kind of crying, and she says, like what's missing? I think that's what she says. Um, Yeah, she asks what's missing, and he says he thinks for him it's just the chemistry, and then she bursts into tears. He talks about how he had no intent to make her feel this way. Uh, I mean, fair enough. I don't think he really did say, today I'm gonna go into an experiment and break people's hearts. But that just feels like that saying that doesn't help Izzy. She's hurting. Um, she actually says she's still sobbing. She actually says she craves so hard to be loved. And that's what I'm talking about. She's very communicative with her feelings, very in touch with her emotions. She's able to verbalize things that people normally won't. Um, so she says that she craves to be loved. She does, however, walk out with dignity. She's like, okay, all right, well, okay. And then walks out. And then in her confessional, she's like, she wonders if she'll ever find love. And your heart kind of breaks for her because not only did she say that she's craving to be loved, but you can tell she's craving to be loved. She comes back into the quarters and it's Aaliyah who hugs her first. And you see Stacy and Johnny watching. We move on to Aaliyah and Uche. Oh, you know what I forgot to say? This season, not only is it the most dramatic, it also has the most dramatic episode titles. Episode 1 was called So You're a Recent Cheater. This conversation between Aaliyah and Uche is where we find out what's up with that title. So Aaliyah and Uche are talking. He's very reassuring. His voice is like very calm and collected. That sometimes when he says something, it sounds curt. But at this point, he's reassuring her. He's saying that, hey, you are my girl. We're going to leave here together. And they're like, okay, well, nice things. Until he starts asking difficult questions. And it's not as if he just pivoted and said, all right, I'm going to ask you the hard questions now. It was it was an organic turn of conversation, you know? He asks if she has ever cheated before, and it turns out she has. Aaliyah talks about how she was in a 2.5 year relationship where she never got satisfaction. And she did end up cheating once. And Uche says, when was that? And she says, 2 years ago. And that's where he says, so you're a recent cheater. I mean, I guess he's not wrong. I mean, it's all relative, right? And that's part of the point of contention here. To him, 2 years is really recent. To her, 2 years is a long time. Um, so she actually starts crying. She talks about, I would never do that to you, and he's like, I don't know that for sure. There's no assurance that you wouldn't. He asked her, basically he asked her more questions about it. It turns out that Aaliyah, never told her ex-boyfriend that she had cheated. They were together for 3 more months after that. And to Uche, those are just all red flags. Um, and Uche, if you remember, is a lawyer. So he's asking all these questions. He knows exactly what questions to ask, and he's basically leaving no crumbs. Um, so poor Aaliyah is answering honestly, and she's crying, and she's trying to preserve what little dignity she has left. I say little because I feel like Uche was kind of attacking her, but she held her own best she can. Um, so they ended the conversation. Uh, she walks out. They say goodbye a little bit, kind of, or they like, let's end this conversation or whatever. And she does walk out, and he starts to say like, you didn't need to tell me that it's a good thing that you told me, but she didn't hear any of that anymore. She comes back into the women's quarters and just starts sobbing. She's breaking down, and Lydia is the first one. Well, she's not the first one. There was somebody else who got to her first, and Lydia got there, and she was her support system the whole time, held her for a really long time. They talked about it. She was all, you know that this is about Uche. If he can't forgive that, that's on him. That's work that he needs to do. There was nothing wrong. You were not wrong when in telling him all that. If he can't deal with it, that's his problem. Lydia was just very like she was very supportive and very firm about it also. Lydia kept saying that I know these because you are so much like me. I see myself in you. It isn't your fault, blah, blah, blah. So lots of things. And they, Lydia and Aaliyah, they form a major friendship this season. Uche on the other side of the wall talks to his guys. To him, the whole cheating thing is serious, which it is. I'm not going to downplay it. Cheating is serious. But he also acknowledges that it is a good thing that she told him. And that was what he had tried to say when Aaliyah had walked out and she didn't hear it. Um, but so that's the mess that they're in at the moment. Um, and that's kind of where it ends. Episode 2, I told you that the episode titles are pretty dramatic. This one is episode 2. Can I talk to you for real? It starts out with Milton and Lydia. Milton, 24, Lydia, 30. I keep saying their age because it does come into play, I think, in the next set of episodes. Um, so she walks in and she says that she's not having a good day. And then he is so optimistic about her. He's like, "Oh yeah, tell me. I'm here." And like she he just seems really into her and also seems like a good person and really caring and wants to hear about it, wants to help. He acknowledges that he's never really well, Lydia tells him that one of her connections broke it off with her, which is Izzy, if you remember. Um, and Milton says, we can talk about it. It's fine. Which is just a nice thing, a nice guy thing to say. Um, she says, she's basically like, well, have we ever been vulnerable with each other? And he admits that he hasn't been vulnerable with her, but that he can start being vulnerable with her that day. So what's her name? Lydia says, "Okay, well, can I talk to you for real?" Which is the title of the episode. Sorry if you heard all that. And she starts crying, right? She starts crying, saying again that she craves so hard to be loved. She says she craves hard to be loved for the person that she is. Again, something that I can relate to. Um, Milton says he knows that she deserves to be loved, and she interrupts and says, I know that I do." She interrupted, right? And that's something she does a lot. But anyway, so he interrupts and he's fine. So like even though she interrupted him, Milton's okay. Milton says that he was thinking about her last night and he was thinking that, oh God, I hope I can talk to her again. He says that she is his strongest connection. He says that he thinks she would be a great mother, that she would be more emotionally connected than he would be because, like we said, she is very in touch with her emotions. And he really does open up to her. And that conversation goes well. She leaves that conversation with a more open mind about Milton because she had initially like dismissed the idea of him because of the 6-year age difference. Milton has always liked her though. JP and Taylor, there's really not a lot that I'm going to say about JP and Taylor because, again, they seem to be the golden couple. Not a lot of mess happening with them in the first 4 episodes. So they have a date, they talk about deep things. He talks about things that aren't great from his childhood, and she's very comforting with him. And she tells him that she loves him, and he loves her too. Man, how do these. Oh, it's only been days and they already love each other. Aaliyah and Lydia are talking about Uche again, and Lydia just keeps saying that it's issues that Uche, needs to work on. That basically none of this is Aaliyah's fault. And that's a lead back into a pod date between Uche and Aaliyah, which is the first since they had the conversation about Aaliyah having cheated in the past. Um, and like, I'm so proud of Aaliyah. So she walks in there knowing exactly what she wanted to say, which is how he made her feel, which was not great. Um, she had said a few things like when you said, "How do I know you would never? How would I know you would never do that again?" Basically, Uche asking her if like how he knows that she would never cheat on him again, and Uche's like, "Did I say any of that?" And she goes, "Yes." He says, "Well, that's what I said, and I apologize, but that's not what I meant." So, Aaliyah, good on you for not shying away from that. Did I say any of that? Because, boy, yes, you did. Yes, you did. He says that it surprised him, and she says that it's fair for him to have been surprised. I don't like Uche's, like, demeanor. He was very cocky about it, very, like, I don't know, I'm not sure I can explain it. He just seemed very much like, even though he was at times apologizing to her, it still felt very like, I'm the big man on campus and you are not, basically. That is something that I'm like, that's a conclusion based on observations. I don't know if that's true or if everybody else is drawing the same conclusions. He says people in his past have that people he has dated before have cheated on him too, so that's why he has trust issues. He does admit to being scared. He says his fear is making him look for things that are wrong where there is nothing wrong. Huh? Oh, he says his fears are making him look at he says his fears are making him look for things that are wrong where there's actually nothing that's wrong. And he knows that he needs to create an environment where Aaliyah can be comfortable telling him things, because she does say, like, how do I know in the future that you're not just going to blow up on me again? She doesn't say blow up, but like to have like a conversation, a more productive conversation. And that's where he says, he acknowledges that he should be creating an environment where she would be comfortable speaking with him about things that are heavy, I guess. And they end that date pretty well, smiling, and they're into each other again. Good on them. So Stacy and Izzy, so they're having fun, they're playing games. There is like a putt golf thing and maybe a small hoop, basketball hoop. He says he feels like he can be himself with her. He basically says that they don't talk about a lot of vulnerable things. Like he opens up to her that the way their relationship is set up is that they don't talk about anything deep. But they do have a lot of fun. And Stacy responds, "Well, that just sounds like a fun ride to her." Um, and like I couldn't exactly tell if Izzy was like, "Yeah, that's okay," or "But I want something deeper." But remember, he does have something deeper with Joni a little bit. So he's like on the fence, right? For both of them. She says she knows what she wants and she doesn't care if anyone else wants him the same way she does. And Izzy says in one of those confessional interviews that he is falling in love with both Stacy, Stacy, and Johnny. I said Joni a couple times, didn't I? Same thing on the show. They change her name every so often. Um, Chris, I'm gonna keep smiling every time I say Chris. So Chris really likes Joni. They're talking about, going to each other's houses for holidays and reunions and stuff. Um, he's like, really think that my wife is only 40 feet away from me. So he's really into her, like really. Johnny's laughter sounds. Oh well, I made a note that Johnny's laughter sounds fake because it does. They laugh a lot on their dates, and you're gonna have to listen to it, but it sounded fake to me. Chris is, however, he seemed genuinely into her. He tells her that he loves her. He says that hopefully they have 70 years together, and she says that she can see a future with him. In the confessional, it says that she likes Chris, and that with Chris it makes a lot of sense, but that she, Johnny, feels like a fifth grader with a crush on Izzy. Izzy, who is already on the fence between her and Stacy. So we're thinking, and Stacy is like, I we don't need to be talking about anything deep. It's all fun and games at this point almost. So we're thinking Johnny and Izzy are probably gonna get together, yeah? Well, Johnny and Izzy have a date. He tells her about like some pretty deep childhood stories. Um, he tells her that he is into her. He says he wants her to be certain. So he's like, explore all your connections. And if you come back to me, I want to know that it's because you really chose me. Um, he asks about her other connections, and so he's like, you don't need to tell me any names, but like, how is it going with your other connections? And she says that, yeah, she does have other connections, Chris. She doesn't say Chris. But she says it's more of a friendship than anything else, and that Izzy is it for her in the experiment. Actually, she just says, you're it. So that's probably your it for life. We get the first proposal of the season. It's firefighter JP and teacher Taylor. Um, and that's it. He proposes. She says yes. Boring shit. Golden couple things are boring shit. Um, and then we get to the drama. Johnny breaks up with Chris, saying that she has a stronger connection with someone else and that she can't be torn between two people anymore. He takes it well. He says he appreciates their dates, and the time that they spent together. And she doesn't need to say, 'cause she started saying, I'm sorry. She's like, you don't need to be sorry. And he says that he really does think that she is a good person. She says it doesn't feel good on her end either. And he tells her, you don't have to stay here. It's okay. And then she leaves. And he sits in his pod for a little while longer, crying. Chris. Um, so Johnny comes back into the women's quarters with the flowers he had gotten her. He says it's a shitty feeling not being enough. Boy, I know. Um, he says that she was always it for him the whole time. Like basically to him, it was Johnny or bust. So I guess bust, huh? And then Izzy and Johnny get on a date in the pods. And she tells him that she ended things with Chris. And he says, I heard. So he tells her that Chris was upset. And this is where Johnny finds out that Chris was upset about her breaking it off with him. And you can kind of like she does, I guess she does feel bad about it because she's like, oh, that sucks. She says in some ways, Chris was the safer option and she didn't feel for him the way that she does for Izzy. So remember, she said that Chris is safer, but that she was more into Izzy. She had talked about like how. No, I don't think it was here where she talked about that. He says he's afraid to see. And then they continue to talk. They talk about like deeper, more serious things um about what's her name? Johnny's past. She talks about her history with somebody who had a problem with addiction, um, and how her husband was a rebound, and that the love of her life is no longer with us. And Izzy's just kind of like absorbing, like he's seriously taking it all in. But he's not being judgmental. He just feels like he says that he feels like he's learning things about her now that he maybe should have learned way before. She says he's not giving her. She's talking and she's asking all these things, and Izzy is just processing. Um, and she says, "You're not giving me anything." Like, but babe, it's okay. Let him kind of process. And she goes, "Okay, well, this conversation will not be productive." And he says, maybe they should call it a night. And he actually starts to leave. And she's like, she says something to stop him from leaving, and he explains that he's just overwhelmed. Um, and she says if it's not her, she will accept it, but that she knows that Izzy is it for her. Remember how Chris said Johnny was it for him? She broke up with him. Now Johnny is saying Izzy is it for her. And this conversation did not end well. Johnny says at a confessional, she says she let go of the one that really cared. And this was after she found out that Chris had cried. She says Izzy choosing Stacy would be wrong. She says that he's not going to be happy with her. I don't know what beef they had before this, or like how much interaction they had in the women's quarters, but she's just very clearly saying that Stacy is not it for Izzy. And that's episode. Well, they do a tease of JP of the JP and Taylor reveal, but that leads into episode 3 entitled "Blindsided." And boy, let me tell you, that title makes sense. So JP and Taylor revealed they are so cute, they're so into each other. They did, however, while they were sitting on the side, like there's a little bench, right? Where they kind of talked for a little bit, they kind of ran out of things to say. And she says like she doesn't like that they ran out of things to say, but he's very optimistic about it. That's okay. We have a lot of time. And she says in the confessional that looks don't matter to her anymore. So obviously it did before, so it's good that she did this experiment because it changed her outlook in life. Good. We go into Izzy and Stacy. She says that with Izzy it's a bit of a build. Like in contrast to Izzy and Joni, where they were talking about serious things right away, for her it's a bit of a build. And she does talk about how he makes her feel. She even wrote it down. I didn't take note of what it was that she said, but it was very sweet things like how he makes her heart race and like it feels like she's being crushed and expanded at the same time. And it was very. I thought it was very nice. Definitely better than the poem that she wrote. I also did not take a note of that, but that was just yeah. Anyway. And they do have to start. They do start to have a more serious conversation about insecurities in relationships. So that build is going. It's building, you know. Milton was telling his friends that he would propose to Lydia like right then. Like right then. So he walks in, she's already gotten a drink for him. And then it's more getting to know stuff. Milton is so calm. He's like, he talks like this a little bit, you know? And he says that they have the same humor. She interrupted him again, and it's something that she does like quite often. He was saying something pretty serious about himself in his past or an insecurity or something. And she interrupted, but he kept talking, right? And she goes, "Can you let me talk?" Lydia, sweetie, I don't like that. But there are more things about Lydia and the things that she says a little bit later. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. The next episode we're talking about in this video. Anyway, so Izzy and Johnny. He loves her traumas and insecurities because he has them too. So he feels that they're kind of connecting on that. And then he explains that the other girl, which he doesn't name her, but we know is Stacy. The other girl sort of came like a slow burn. Like she came out of nowhere. He says she knows him, the other girl, Stacy, knows him so well. Um, he says it's easy and fun. And then Joni goes in and says, well, you know that I had the same thing with Chris, right? And Izzy's all, what do you mean? I had the same thing with Chris that you have with Stacy. So she's just over there naming all these people. I don't have hair ties in here. Anyway, I'm sorry. Um, she was telling Izzy that she, she was telling Izzy that she broke up with Chris because it would have been a fear-based choice because Chris is the safer option. Um, she says that it feels like it would be a repeat of a past relationship or past relationships rather, where everything makes sense, but her heart is just not there. Um, he made her feel secure, but she did not. Chris made her feel secure, but she did not come to Love is Blind to be secure. She came to break patterns. She says that the convos that they're having, she and Izzy are better than the games Stacy and Izzy are having. Judgmental much? He says it has to make sense. He says that it has to make sense to him. So she asks if he's ending it with her, and he says yes. She says okay and leaves. So now Izzy comes back into the women's quarters, and she's upset, she's sad, and somebody does ask, like, oh, I don't know if somebody asks her, but she does talk about, like, well, Chris was very upset. I am going to try to talk to him. And, like, I don't know what's up with that. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like people do come to these shows looking for love. There are also people, as we've seen in season 2, who come to the show for clout. I don't know how to read Johnny. She could be really looking for love, didn't find it with Izzy, giving Chris another shot, or giving Chris another shot for more airtime. What do you guys think? I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen the show. Tell me, is Johnny chasing clout or airtime, or is she genuinely looking for love? Oh, the other thing I noted is that Johnny and her friends, which are Taylor and Renee, are saying that Stacy and Izzy are for sure not going to work out. So Izzy and Stacy, so he walks into the pod with her, and like I didn't realize there was food on the table, but like you right off the bat see that he's light and happy, and he's like, oh, yay, you know. I think maybe it was the food, but it also could be the relief that he was feeling. He does sit down, start munching on things, and says, like, you don't even know the kind of drama that I've had today. And they do talk about it. He says he feels great. He says he is the most clear headed he has been. He is able to talk to her about things, and she says that she's just going to stay out of it. By things, I mean, he starts telling her about having ended things with Johnny, and she's like, I know, I heard, but I'm gonna stay out of it. That is your business. That has nothing to do with me. And I think that was very classy of Stacy, actually. They are just happy and are clicking. And remember, these are the two people who were like really flirty and cute. Um, he says it's like finding first love with her. And she actually tells him that she knows she is falling in love, but she is just not, like, she's not quite there to be able to communicate that with him just yet, but she's kind of heading in that direction. She says that her body is not well conditioned for emotional stuff. Okay, something that maybe work on a little bit, but if it works for you, it works for you. Johnny wants to talk to Chris now. She says, so they're talking, right? Um, but first of all, Chris and Izzy have a pretty good relationship in the men's quarters. They're able to joke with each other. He actually says, like, it doesn't feel good to be second choice, and Izzy's always going to hold that over my head like forever. And he just like, I thought it was cute that they're able to joke about it. But Chris does go and talk to Johnny. She says Izzy ended things with her, but that she wants to discuss what happened between her and Chris. She says that she got in her head, and he's all like, you can just be, if you can please be as honest as you can be. She says that she heard about his emotional reaction and he admits to it. And that she says that his emotional reaction makes her think that he cares. And he's all, I do care. Um, it made her wonder. She says it made her wonder if she repeated a pattern with Izzy because, and she says, she tends to go with men who are like Izzy, who are emotionally unavailable. They never really had a secure relationship. Says that she says that Chris is the safe choice, but in some ways is less exciting. Chris says that it kind of hurts that she's not excited by him because he is always very excited to be able to talk to her. Um, and she kind of like backtracks. Chris says that he wants to be sure that the person he falls for actually does want to be with him, which I think is like the bare minimum, right? Oh, Chris, I swear to God. Um, she says he feels. She says she feels much safer with him, and that is why she is there talking to him, even though she had already broken his heart. Now that she has gotten her heart broken by Izzy. Just saying. I don't know if you can tell. I'm not a Johnny fan. I'm really not. So she says that she feels safer with Chris, right? She acknowledges that she fucked up pretty much. Chris says he wants to be with her. Um, and she asks if they are ready for an engagement. Guys, she broke up with him and then she got broken up with. She comes back to Chris and says, "Are we ready to get engaged?" Holy. Um he says he knows her and he trusts her and cares about her, but that he is going to have to think about it. Fair enough, Chris. It's okay. Think. Now, Chris comes back to the men's quarters and talks to some of them, Izzy included. And he actually asks like what Johnny said. Izzy's a little like, I don't know if you want me to just tell you all the things. And Chris is like, yes, yes, tell me all the things. So Izzy tells Chris that Johnny said everyone she's been was a safe choice, but that she was never in love. And he kind of elaborates. And Chris says that she said the same thing but different. If you remember what Johnny told Chris is like, oh no, Johnny to Izzy first. Johnny to Izzy said that Chris is the safe choice, and she feels like if she had chosen Chris, she would be repeating a pattern because she does always go with a safe choice, right? Johnny, however, in talking to Chris in this last conversation, says that she does end up choosing the more exciting choice, um, and that he should have chosen Chris. So like it's the same thing. Chris is safer, Izzy is more exciting, but kind of in reverse. Like Johnny told Izzy that he always chose the Chris type, and Johnny told Chris that she always chose the Izzy type and should be going with Chris. I don't know if she forgot that they could talk to each other. Because, it's just the dynamic is different. You're not really talking to them at the same time. It's just maybe not part of her consciousness. And then we see like a scene of, at this point, I thought a really long and useless scene of Aaliyah and Lydia just hugging each other and being friends. You know how gal pals can be hugging each other with a throw blanket and like holding hands and just being sisters pretty much. But then in the next scene, in the next scene, you realize why that scene was there. Uche Uche and Aaliyah are on a date. And Uche says, now remember, Uche was who was pissed at Aaliyah for having cheated on her boyfriend 2 years ago, right? And he's all like, honesty is huge. Uche tells Aaliyah, well, it starts out cute. Like he wrote a poem for her and all these things, blah, blah, blah. And she starts talking about trust and how honesty, blah, blah, blah. And we see that Uche is already uncomfortable. So he's like, I have to tell you something. Speaking of truth and honesty. And he tells her that on day one, of the pods, day one of the experience, one of his dates was someone who knew things about him. Um, and it turns out that it was someone that he had dated before. Can you guess who it was? Yes, it was Lydia. When I tell you that they have a shot of Aaliyah, like, I was like, I mean, when he was leading up to it, I was like, I bet you it's Lydia. And he actually says, it's Lydia. And I'm like, blindsided. That is why the title of the episode is Blindsided, folks. And that's where it ends. Like, him saying it's Lydia is where it ends. Episode 4 is called She's Gone. Uh, it starts right back up with the scene that we left off, which is Uche telling Aaliyah that he had previously dated Lydia. I'm on the second bottle. So he starts to say, we do get a flashback. What happens in the flashback is, so they walk in and Uche's like, hello. And Lydia's like, what's your name? And he goes, Uche. And Lydia's like, and he's all, that's not the response I was expecting. And she just starts going like, your name is Uche, and I can't remember his last name. You are a lawyer. You have your own business. And he's like, who am I speaking with? And she has to give him like one more. She's like, you don't know who I am? You don't recognize me? And he's like, no. Who am I speaking with? She says a thing, and he's like, Lydia? And they're like, yeah. And from the way that the scene is cut, it looks as if Lydia had asked him, and you don't want to just start from zero from here. And Uche actually tells her that he thinks that that'll compromise the experiment because they already know each other. And that's what we see, right? So we flash forward to present, back to Aaliyah and Uche talking, and Aaliyah's like, because that's a lot. Aaliyah's, she basically needed a moment. She needed a moment, stepped out, she came back. She said that she and Lydia are close friends, that she was convinced Lydia was going to be Aunt Lydia to her kids. She starts sobbing. Uche, by the way, is also crying. Aaliyah tells him how supportive Lydia had been this whole time, that they're really good friends. She says it's not ideal. She says that she needs to talk to Lydia first. She's optimistic, however, that they they can get through it. It's not ideal, but they can get through it. I believe that's what she says. Uche goes on to tell her, because there was a scene before where this happened, but Uche tells Aaliyah that the other thing is that he's been telling Milton that like engagement is not a requirement at Love is Blind. I mean, I guess it is if you want to continue on with the show, but in life it's not. It's not a requirement. And that, if you don't remember, that's significant because Milton is actually with Lydia. Aaliyah says none of this changes anything between her and Uche. Great. But she is going to talk to Lydia. Also great. Izzy proposes to Stacy. She says yes, they're happy. She says it's nice to not hold anything back in the women's quarter. So she comes back engaged and happy, and she's saying it's nice to not have to repress things in the women's quarters anymore. Taylor, who was one of the girls in the circle when Johnny was saying that Stacy and Izzy would never work out, was hugging her saying, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. I do not know. I don't know. I guess we'll learn a little bit more about Taylor later on in the season. But that just felt extremely two-faced to me. Johnny says she hasn't gotten a chance to cry about Izzy breaking up with her because she is living with his, at this point, already a fiance, right? And okay, sure, fair enough. And we get a flashback. We get to a scene where she's talking to some of her friends again, talking about Izzy actually started talking about bad things about himself, like his credit score is bad, and he just signed a lease somewhere, and he's not ready for a commitment, blah, blah, blah. So now she seems to be bad mouthing Izzy. I mean, I guess it's a fair enough reaction. I mean, it's not a fair enough reaction, but I guess it's a common reaction, is what I should say. So we come back to a conversation between Chris and Johnny. Chris is still very nice, and she's laying it on like thick, like she feels safe with him and talking about the future, and like she's pulling things from previous conversations that they had talked about. They're talking about eye contact being such a big thing for her, and I guess it is for him also. And that there's just a connection that she'll never be able to explain. She talks about family reunions. She talks about loving you. Basically, she says, like, I'm thinking about the future, family reunions. I'm thinking about loving you, or whatever. She acknowledges she should not have taken it for granted and that she is sorry. He accepts her apology. He said he put a lot of thought into it. He says he appreciates that she sees everything 2020 in hindsight. He also says that how she described a relationship is exactly how he envisioned it. He also says that he went to Love is Blind to find his wife, and that at one point he thought he had. And there's a long pause, and Love is Blind does the whole music thing. He says he has always given everything of him into relationships, and he thinks at this point he needs to be selfish and to worry about himself and choose someone who always chooses him. Yeah. I wondered for a second like who else he was talking to, because we don't see any other of Chris, any like really any other dates of Chris's with anybody else. So I'm like, who is it? Who is it? But I don't know. I guess if there is somebody, we'll see it in the next episodes, or maybe there is nobody. Maybe he leaves there without an engagement. And Johnny says, okay. Now we go to Lydia and Aaliyah. You know, I feel like while I did say that JP and Taylor are the golden couple in this season, I feel like the strongest connection is between Aaliyah and Lydia. And you know, fair enough. Friendships, girl friendships, probably are stronger than anything else, any other relationship in the world. So Lydia and Aaliyah. Aaliyah finally tells Lydia that she knows about Uche. And Lydia starts sobbing. Obviously, they've made a connection with each other. So she also feels really badly about it. She's like, I couldn't tell you anything if I had said anything. It would have broken the experiment or whatever. Uche would not have had a chance if she had spoken about things. So Aaliyah is just like, you know, she doesn't want to be looking over her shoulder, and Lydia reassures her that it's over, that that's not a thing anymore. She says that she and Uche met at a time that was a really low point in her life. And she says that Uche had felt like he would be taking on too much with her, because apparently she doesn't have a lot of friends in the area. She doesn't have any family. So he would be everything for her, and that was just too much. She says that they were not meant to be, and I almost quote, I don't know if I actually quote, but she basically says like, what is the reason for them not being it for each other? She still doesn't know up to that very moment. And she starts talking about like, he needs to be a little bit more open, and here I am choosing someone similar to Lydia. She's basically saying that Uche should be taking this as a sign from the universe that he is getting a second chance with an awesome, wonderful woman. I think the conversation should have ended there, right? I mean, Aaliyah does go on to say that she is scared to be hurt. But again, Lydia reassures her that she will only ever think of Uche as Aaliyah's husband from then on out. And I really do think that conversation should have ended, but it doesn't. Lydia talks some more. She talks about, well, she starts with like that they had the last time they had seen each other was January. She says January, I'm pretty sure. January, and that they had slept together. Um and Aaliyah, there's like a spliced in confessional of Lydia, like I don't there are things that I don't need to know about. Um and then Lydia keeps talking about things like what car he drives. He has a 3-story house, his dog, he's a workaholic, blah 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 blah. And like you see Aaliyah progressively going, and she actually is verbalizing, I don't need to know all the things. You don't need to be talking about these. And in the confessional, she's like, it was actually kind of pissing me off. Because fair enough, like Lydia read the room or listen to Aaliyah saying, I don't need to know about any of these things. Um, she does circle back. Lydia does circle back to again reassuring Aaliyah um that this is it. Like for her, Uche and her would work out, and like for her, Milton and her would work out also. Um, and says that they can laugh about this in a few years. So Uche and Aaliyah are talking, and they're talking about like Aaliyah basically asks him again about the details of the conversation in the pod. Apparently, Lydia says talks about it a little a little differently. And Lydia's story is a little different from what we had seen also, because Lydia had claimed that Uche and her had agreed to start from zero, but in the flashback, we know that Uche had said, "Yeah, but that would ruin the experiment." I wish they would air like the entire conversation at least. Um, Much like they did with the Clementine, the what is it for Cole and Zenab. Anyway, so Uche's like, start from ground zero. That's not exactly how it happened, but he doesn't actually say how it happened. Aaliyah was saying that Lydia just kept talking, things that she didn't want to know, and then Uche was reassuring her basically. Um, and Aaliyah's really struggling. She's like, yeah, but like, because Uche tells her, I'm going through this too. And she goes, yeah, but not quite like I am, because I'm basically caged in with your ex girlfriend, pretty damn close, which is true. Like, not invalidating what Uche is going through, but it is Aaliyah who has formed a friendship with his ex girlfriend. And Aaliyah is saying, like in the outside world, I would never befriend your ex, nor would any of my friends date you after we had nor would I date you if you were a friend's ex or whatever. And she's right. She is going through this, but at a much like harder level than Uche actually is. Um they do, however. Oh, and she calls him out on like, yeah, but see, you slept with her 3 months ago. That's a very recent past. Which also is true. That's definitely more recent than Aaliyah cheating. I'm just saying. The conversation does end pretty well. Aaliyah basically accepts that this is going to be like an uphill battle, but she is willing to work on it with him. Um, they end on a light note talking about the ring. Now it's Lydia's turn to tell Milton. She tells him about knowing Uche outside. She says that she stopped things with him she says February now, but that was January that she had said before. Maybe it adds up. Maybe the math would math. It's funny because Uche says that he had broken up with her, but she's saying she had broken up with him. She says, this is the universe messing with me. She says that she loves Aaliyah. They are good friends. She says to Milton that she does not have any unresolved feelings for Uche. She promises that there is nothing there for her, and that there is no reason that Milton should be worried, because there is a reason that she, Lydia, and Uche did not work out. And she's like, I want to know your thoughts, and because Milton seems to be like the quietly processing type of person. So he's just processing, he's absorbing, and she keeps saying, "Tell me your thoughts. What are you thinking?" And he just keeps saying, I'm processing. I'm here. I'm listening." Um, he says like, "I mean, there have been curveballs," and she goes, "What are the other curveballs?" He starts saying what the other curveballs were, and then she interrupted him. But like, Lydia, you asked him. Anyway, so she's like really pushing him to talk, and Milton's like, I'm processing. So he actually basically says like, I need 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes. So he steps. Lydia asks, "Are you gonna be back after 5 minutes?" And he's like, "Yes." So he steps out, goes into the men's quarters, and there's nobody there. And he just takes a second in the kitchen. Lydia also steps out, comes into the women's living quarters. Stacy is there. Stacy is supporting her, hugging her, comforting her. Stacy was actually very nice. Again, I don't know what Johnny is on about. Stacy tells her Stacy tells Lydia that Lydia needs to give Milton a minute, which is true. Stacy says it's a shock. He just had a shock. He needs to process it. Um, she's actually extremely logical in this conversation. She goes and gets Lydia something to drink. They talk about it a little more. And she's very comforting. She's basically saying like, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. And if it doesn't, I'm still going to be here for you. I think I might be a Stacy fan, y'all. I'm not sure. Things change. We all remember SK from season 3. Things change. But I think I might be a Stacy fan. Anyway, so Milton comes back to the pod. He waits a little bit while Lydia and Stacy wrap up, and Lydia finally comes back. She says, his reaction is valid, and she's like, "If you have any other questions, you can certainly ask me." Um, he asks how recent it was. They talked about having met in 2020, or she talked about having met in 2020. Said that 3 months ago. So this was filmed like, I'm assuming April, because January 3 months ago, right? Maybe May. She said she decided to move on. So Milton says that he wishes he had known earlier. And Lydia explains that if she had said something, that the whole experiment would kind of come crashing down. And I'm not sure how true that is. Like, first of all, I saw an article. I didn't click it because I didn't want to be like, I wanted my thoughts on this to be pure. But I saw an article that said like, why didn't production intervene? Which I think is a good question. But more than that, I feel like while Lydia did not need to tell the entire group of women, not even Aaliyah really, uh, because Aaliyah needed to have a clear like relationship with Uche and form that connection first before finding out. I get that. But I feel like Lydia should have told Milton when things started getting serious, because it's not like anything will change, but just Milton. Like nobody else needs to know. That's my 2 cents on the matter. But she's convinced that if she had said anything to anybody, the whole experiment will come crashing down. He says that if he had known, he maybe would have stopped talking to her. He said that he thought at 24 he knew a lot, but now he realizes that emotionally there's a lot that he had never addressed, and she's affirming him. She's like, that's a positive. I am 30 and still a work in progress. You already know that at 24. That's definitely a positive. She asks if he trusts her, and he says yes. And she says, "Well, there's always a plot twist." And she kind of jokes about something, and they laugh. It's cute. It's cute, but I mean, a little still uncomfortable from Milton's side. We do an Izzy Stacy reveal. Izzy talks about imagining fun stuff in the future, like 50 years on. They would be on on a beach abroad, drinking, dancing, and it's cute. Their meeting is cute, and I started to wonder if maybe they are the golden couple of the season. They didn't have any of the awkward like nothing to talk about things that Taylor and JP had. he's shaking, and she's shaking a little bit too, but he's shaking more. Um, so he's really shaking, and she's like, breathe, just breathe. And I thought that was cute. I might be a Stacy fan. Um, Lydia and Milton back in the pods. Milton proposes. She says yes. Milton says, "Will you be my Puerto Rican wife?" Is he also gonna get an American wife then? Like, what does that mean? He says that was easy, and she says it's because it's meant to be. And then we see Uche. Uche walks into the pod, and the confessional that's spliced in with it is like, "I'm going to propose." So he comes in. He's like, "Hello," and there's nothing on the other side yet. He doesn't hear anything, so he sits down. He waits a little bit. He's like, "Hello," and nothing. And then we see a tight shot of a notebook on the other side, and then an empty couch, and he says, "Hello." And then we hear, I'm assuming, a producer on the speaker saying, Uche, Aaliyah decided not to continue with the experiment. She left. She left, and that is how. Well, actually, that's not how. She left, so he takes a second. He walks back down the hallway into the guy's living quarters, and says, "She's gone." Episode title, "She's gone." And that's how it ends. They do a teaser of the next I think 3 episodes, which is why I'm excited, because I'm hoping now you know why I'm saying these are the most dramatic episodes so far, or at least the most dramatic of the first set of episodes in the 5 seasons that I've seen. So we see them in Mexico. Aaliyah does come back. They're already back. This is shot in Houston, I think. So they're already back in town, and they meet up at a restaurant, much like Zach and Bliss did. JP and Taylor are apparently having not a great time. Taylor is upset. Something about being fake. Milton introduces Lydia to his family, and somebody, I think is his mom, somebody asks her, "What does a 30-year-old want with a 24-year-old?" And somebody else says, I don't even know if this is in the same scene, but the next person who says something is, "It's phony." What else? Johnny and Chris are at the vacation. I don't know if it's the vacation or like the residences that they end up staying at, but they certainly make an appearance at one of the parties. And there's a bit of a confrontation with Izzy. I'm not really sure what's happening. Um, yeah. Yeah. And that is my recap and thoughts and feelings about the first 3 episodes of the 5th season of Love is Blind. Yeah, so thank you for staying with me through however long this is actually going to end up. If you are still here at the end of a really long video, thank you. I really appreciate you sitting through that. I'm sorry it's a little sloppy, I know. The rest hopefully won't be as sloppy. I do have a couple other videos. I reviewed the 2nd season of The Ultimatum, and I did a recap of the After the Altar for season 4 with Marshall and Bliss and Zach and Tiffany and Brett. Those are all available in the same channel. If you were not already a subscriber, if you could please subscribe. I like seeing the numbers go up. That and for no other reason. But I appreciate it. I appreciate that you stayed this long. I would appreciate it if you subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so very much. I am officially in the double digits. I will see you guys again tomorrow or the day after, probably the day after, for episodes 5, 6, 7 of Love is Blind season 5. So signing off. I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.